Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Tristan Rallings, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraft woman Despina Kontakos. We welcome the members of the National Servicemen's Association of Australia, ACT branch, who are here with us today. This year commemorates the 57th anniversary of the second National Service Scheme. The National Service Act 1964 required males aged 20 years and older to register to serve in the Defence Force for a period of 2 years continuous service, followed by 3 years in the Reserve Forces. In 1965, the Defence Act was amended, and as a result, national servicemen, known as NASHOs, could be sent overseas, and indeed were deployed to Vietnam. Between 1965 and 1972, more than 800,000 men registered for national service. Around 63,000 NASHOs were conscripted and more than 15,000 served in the Vietnam War. Over 200 were killed and 1,200 wounded. We are also honoured to welcome Mr John King, President, Returned and Services League of Australia, ACT branch, and members of the Boer War Association. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families who love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, all beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
If you are able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of the more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations over more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Trooper Michael Joseph Commins, who died while fighting during the Boer War. Michael Joseph Commins was born in about 1874 in the village of Micalago, south of Queensland, New South Wales. Known as Mick, he was the eldest of 7 children of John and Mary Commins, 6 of whom survived infancy. He came from a large sheep grazing family that was well known in the district. Mick was a keen sportsman, active in football, cricket and cycling. In the late 1890s, the colony of New South Wales raised a mounted military unit called the 1st Australian Horse. Sub-units were formed around the colony and Commins volunteered for the service in the Micalago sub-unit at this time. This was one of many volunteer military units that were common in the Australian colonies. In October 1899, after a worsening political deadlock in southern Africa, Boer forces invaded the British colonies of the Cape Colony and Natal. Britain declared war on the 2 Boer republics, the Orange Free State and the South African Republic. In support of the British Empire, each of the Australian colonies committed troops to the conflict. The 1st Australian Horse left New South Wales in 2 contingents. Commins was in the first of these. He embarked at New South Wales on the transport ship Langton Grange in mid-November 1899, arriving in Cape Town in mid-December. On Christmas Day 1899, Commins used his time off to write his younger brother Patrick a letter. Even at this early stage of the war, it was clear to him that the Boers could use hit-and-run tactics to great effect. As he wrote, "The Boers fight when they like and leave off when they like." In early February 1900, Commins wrote to his family again. He reported that all members of the unit were well and morale was high. The Australian Horse was initially raised as a cavalry force, and the soldiers were equipped with swords for close combat. However, the nature of the fighting in South Africa meant that Commins and his unit were deployed as mounted infantry. Under the command of a British officer, the Australian Horse and other mounted soldiers were deployed along the main railway line leading from Cape Town to the Orange Free State. Outnumbered locally by Boer commandos, the unit conducted patrols and participated in skirmishes in order to maintain British control of the railway. Conditions in the camps were poor, and already outbreaks of dysentery and typhoid fever were becoming common among the Australian and Imperial forces. From the records, it appears that Commins became ill with typhoid fever towards the end of March 1900. He was evacuated to the British Military Hospital in Cape Town. Commins remained in hospital where his condition worsened and he developed pneumonia. On the 27th of June 1900, he died. He was 26 years old. Commins was buried in Cape Town Maitland Cemetery in South Africa, along with more than 500 British soldiers who died during the Boer War. Mick Commins was survived by his parents and 5 younger siblings in Australia. His sister Nellie wrote a short poem for the local newspaper which ended with the lines, "Our home is dark without thee, we miss thee everywhere." Trooper Michael Joseph Commins is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, one of almost 600 Australians who died while serving in the Boer War. The photograph of his name listed on the Queensland Boer War Memorial is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Trooper Michael Joseph Commins, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better future.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall not grow old, as we that as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going of the sun, down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.